Hey everyone, welcome back to the Fantasy Pros Football Podcast with Mike Tagliere, and I'm Bobby Sylvester. We're on Twitter at BobbyFantasyPro and at Mike Tagliere NFL, and today we've got a start-sit show for you. Tags, how's it going, buddy?
It's going good, dude. I would like to share an unfortunate experience. You know, like with the job that we have, like you guys should see my computer setup. Like I have like 20 tabs open at a time. I have like 7 Excel spreadsheets, like 4 Word documents, like legitimately so much crap opened up. My computer, it was kind of like acting up, so I had to like refresh it. It closed down everything. It closed down all my web pages. And
you saved everything, right?
Oh yeah, Word and Excel are set to automatically save things, so I've like learned my lesson there.
Ooh, that would have been bad.
But yeah, it's like the most frustrating thing. Like if you've ever dealt with multiple web pages, it's like going back. It's like, okay, which ones did I have open? Because like when I have so many, it's hard to keep track of all of them.
Yeah, I mean, that's a minimal problem to have. Like, everyone's listening, like, let me tell you about my job. My job sucks, and we have the best job in the world. We get to talk about fantasy football. And, you know, there's really not much news to talk about because we covered it all with the trade deadline show. We did a special at the end. We did the Halloween candy draft, and I think most people liked it. If you didn't, I'm sorry. That's why we put it at the end of the show, just so you could just tune it out if you didn't want to. But Tex and I try to keep it very football related. Every once in a while we throw something in, but it's not very often. So Tex, let's just dive right into it. We're talking start, sit. And so basically what this is, if you guys haven't heard the show before, it's for 12-team leagues. Obviously, we'll cover some players for 10-team, 8-team leagues, 14-team leagues, but it's for half PPR, 12-team leagues, and you can make the adjustments for your league based on that. If we don't answer your specific question, you can always go to Tag's primer article, which comes out on Thursday, and quite literally covers everything you could possibly want to know. Seriously, it is the most comprehensive article in fantasy football history, and I'm not just saying that. And I post my rankings on Twitter at BobbyFantasyPro every Thursday, update them throughout the week, so you can check those out if you want to. So let's start out at the quarterback position, and it is a little bit more shallow than it has been in recent weeks because we've got 6 teams on bye. Some of these kind of mid-range quarterbacks are not in the best matchup, so there's going to be some difficult decisions. Let's start with Drew Brees, who's going up against the Rams, and Brees is coming off an awful week, not playing much in the red zone, not throwing many passes. I see ECR, which by the way means expert consensus ranking, so the experts as a whole in the industry, have him at quarterback 7. I don't. I've got him right on the fringe at 13. Where do you have him, Tags?
Ooh, I have him at number 6. I am higher on Brees than most, and I actually debated putting him over Patrick Mahomes this week.
Oh, man. Okay.
I like Brees an awful lot. And
what is it that you like? The 25 passes he's throwing every week?
Obviously. No. Like, the thing with Mahomes, I want to let people know before they freak out on me, is that because I don't think Tyreek Hill plays. With their bye week coming up, like I just don't know if they risk it with him. They're a team that has 1 loss in the year. I don't think they need to push Tyreek Hill to go against the Browns. So that's why I have Patrick Mahomes at 5. But Drew Brees is someone, so if you look at the Rams, like last week, if you watched that game with the Packers and the Rams, the Packers game plan was just terrible. Like they only ran 52 plays in that game. They tried to slow the game down and they just sat on a lead. The Saints don't do that at home. The thing is, the Rams haven't allowed too much on the ground to running backs, and it's because teams have to kind of go toe-to-toe with them and score points. The Saints defense has allowed so many, like they're the team in the NFL who has allowed the 7th most 40-plus yard passes, and we know that Goff and McVay, they love to stretch that offense. So looking at this, you have to think that Brees has to go toe-to-toe with this Rams offense because, you know, the Saints have really struggled on defense.
Yep, they're getting better, and they traded for Apple.
Yeah, well, Apple's, he's terrible. Like, he's not good, and that's the thing.
He's better than Crawley.
That's a slight improvement, but still not good. So now here's the thing. So the Rams, on the flip side of that, the Rams have allowed 10 plays of 40-plus yards this year. That is the most in the NFL. Like, legitimately, they're struggling on the back end of their defense. That's why they got a pass rusher. They traded for Dante Fowler from the Jaguars yesterday. So they are struggling as well. Brees at home is always money. I just think this game, it has an over-under of 60 points. You want to get parts of it. I have no worries about Drew Brees in this game.
I'm taking the under. I think that the Rams have a better defense than they've shown. They also just picked up Fowler. He's not a big upgrade, but he is that extra pass rusher they needed. I think the Saints defense is top half in the league. I know they haven't exactly performed like it yet, but they have the talent. I think that they'll get it together. We expected them to be top 10 going into the season. I think they will be just fine. So I'm going under on 60 and Drew Brees passing 25 and a half times. I might take the over, but like we're talking about 25 and a half. And Mahomes, I've run out of excuses to say he's not the best or second best quarterback in the NFL. At first I was saying, well, he's not passing the ball that much, like 28 times a game. He doesn't have many passing yards. He has less than Blake Bortles. Well, all of a sudden he's number 2 in the NFL in passing yards. He hasn't played anyone. Well, now he's played Jacksonville. He's played Denver twice. He's played the Cincinnati Bengals, who have a much better secondary than people realize. I can't possibly sit Mahomes for Brees.
No, and that's the thing. I don't think anybody has that question. I don't think anybody out there is debating that. But I think some people might be debating like Drew Brees versus Matt Ryan or Drew Brees versus Ryan Fitzpatrick. Some people might have that question. But just know this, like of the quarterbacks who have thrown more than 30 passes against the Rams, those quarterbacks have averaged 349 passing yards and 1.7 touchdowns. They've only allowed 5 touchdowns to running backs this year, while allowing a touchdown every 12.4 targets to wide receivers. So if they're going to trust Marcus Peters on Michael Thomas, he's going to eat that dude alive.
Who's going to get those touchdowns, though? Is it Drew Brees or the guy who actually plays in the red zone, Taysom Hill?
Yeah, that's obviously like a downside to Drew Brees right now because he is stealing some of those looks, but I do have Brees as a must-play this week.
But I don't hate Drew Brees, by the way. Like, he's the most efficient quarterback in the NFL, and it's not even close. 77% completion percentage. He's got the 1 interception. He's phenomenal. The Saints just aren't using him as a high-volume quarterback, and he's not obviously getting any rushing yards. I would rather play someone like Mitch Trubisky. And Tags, I know that this is really funny because we've got the bet where I bet against Trubisky, and ever since then, I don't know if you saw this tweet that I have, Tags, but here's the best 4-game stretches for quarterbacks in fantasy football history. Tom Brady in 2007, Mitch Trubisky number 2 right now, Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers at number 4 and 5. Trubisky is an elite company. This is the second best 4-game stretch in NFL history.
That's insane. What's funny is I actually dropped your little stat that you had in the primer about Trubisky and how, if like people talked about Patrick Mahomes after the first 4 weeks and how he basically was like the MVP. But if you look at it, and I'm not saying that
he wasn't even the best fantasy football quarterback in that time. It was Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, but that's the thing. So Trubisky has outscored both of them over the last 4 games. Like
not even close.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like it's crazy. It's like 15 more fantasy points than Patrick Mahomes had in a 4-game stretch. So, I mean, Trubisky's not playing elite football. I'm not saying that, but I'm talking about as a fantasy asset.
Of course. And I'm not picking on Buffalo either, and I'm not expecting this to continue, but if we get 75% of this, we're talking about a top 5 quarterback. So even if we're expecting major regression, and we should expect substantial regression, I still think he's a quarterback 1 every single week, and I don't know if I can say the same about Brees right now.
Yeah, Trubisky is someone that I have at 13 this week. I don't love him. So the Bills have been one of the better pass defenses in the NFL. They've allowed just 6.8 yards per attempt. We don't know if Allen Robinson's going to be available for this game. They haven't allowed a big play. Like the thing is they're preventing the big plays to opposing teams, and that's limiting the fantasy points.
I'm not worried about that though, because what's the over-under on his rushing? 55 rushing yards? He's got 53, 47, 81, 51 over the last 4 games.
Well, that's the thing. That's another one of the points that I would say that I would use against Trubisky this week is that the Bills defense do run a lot of zone coverage, and because of that, they're not going to allow many rushing yards to a quarterback. They've only allowed 98 rushing yards in the season. They haven't allowed a single touchdown to a quarterback. So that's my concern with him this week. I don't think his floor is as high as it's been. Like me personally, I would struggle if I owned both Mitch Trubisky and Alex Smith. I would struggle trying to figure out who I wanted to start.
Wow, Alex Smith, I've got him down at 17. Even against Atlanta, he just hasn't been especially good. I think he just kind of hit that wall, Tags, or it was just the I don't have Andy Reid wall anymore.
Yeah, I don't think that I'm not saying that Alex Smith is a good quarterback this year because he hasn't looked good. He's kind of returning back to that Chiefs quarterback that he was pre-2017. And to those of you who said that Tyreek Hill is the one who made him, I mean, I'm not going to sit here. Obviously, it changes things. But if you also look at who Alex Smith is throwing to now, where it's like Paul Richardson, Josh Doxson, and Jamison Crowder, who's been out, he's obviously struggling. So, but the Falcons have been one of the most generous defenses in the NFL. They've allowed over a 70% completion rate in coverage, over 8 yards per attempt.
Did you say over 70%?
Yeah, it's 70.4% completion rate. They've allowed 8.1 yards per pass attempt, 6.14% touchdown rate. Ever since week 1, when they lost Keanu Neal and Deion Jones, there has not been a quarterback who's finished outside the top 10 against them.
That's a good stat, man. I'm looking at Alex Smith's ceiling, though. At least from what we've seen so far this season, he's had some good matchups. Indianapolis, Green Bay, the New Orleans Saints. Carolina's not that bad of a matchup. The Giants. His ceiling is 292 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's not even running anymore. Like 20 rushing yards is the highest he's been all season.
Well, it's like you said. I think there's a lot of bad matchups for quarterbacks in the streaming range this week. And obviously with 6 teams on bye, I just think that like to get into the top 12 this week, which is where I have him at number 12, to get there, I think 250 yards, 2 touchdowns gets you there.
Okay, we'll definitely see about that. Let's talk about a couple other quarterbacks before we move on. Deshaun Watson, It looked like he was healthy last week. Now, he only threw the ball 20 times. I don't think he's going to get 5 touchdowns again. There's a lot of people, by the way, who are really mad at both of us that we told people to bench Deshaun Watson.
A lot of people did, though. I mean, like the ECR, the expert consensus, like the most accurate guys in the industry were telling you to bench Deshaun Watson. I think his ECR was like 15 or 17 last week. I know I had him at 15 personally.
Why would you play a guy with a collapsed lung? We got the process right. We knew he was going to throw 20, 25 passes.
Yeah, we didn't know he was going to throw 5 touchdowns. Like, obviously, the Dolphins' defense had been much better. They've been slowly getting worse as the season's gone on. So maybe we all overlooked that. But yeah, the thing is, he wasn't sacked once. So if their offensive line, obviously, the Dolphins can't get a pass rush, that's a problem. But the Broncos aren't going to have that problem. The Broncos' defense has come to life the last 3 weeks. They've totaled 13 sacks, 5 interceptions, and 2 fumbles in that time. Obviously, Deshaun Watson, even though he wasn't sacked a single time last week, he's still the second most sacked quarterback in the NFL. So, some people think Demaryius Thomas is going to walk in. It's his first week with the team, guys. Like, we can't expect...
What's he going to get, 20 snaps?
Yeah, we can't expect Demaryius Thomas to play a full-time role, and if he does, he's not going to be on the same page as Watson.
And QT's hurt?
Yeah, the thing is, so one thing to pay attention to is Denver, it looks like Bradley Roby did not practice. He's their top cornerback on the perimeter. If he doesn't play, obviously, that's going to hurt their defense. He hasn't been good in general. Adam Jones has been out since, I think, week 5. So, like, their secondary is really hurting right now, so they'd have to get the pressure on Watson. So, there's some injuries. I have Deshaun Watson right behind Ryan Fitzpatrick. So, I have him in the QB1 territory. It's just I don't think that he's, like, a must-play by any means.
Yeah, I've got Watson at 10, so I don't think he's a must-play. I do think that if you have him, you probably start him. I don't see any streamer I would rather have over him. Unless somehow Trubisky's still available in your league, I'd rather play Watson than Fitzpatrick. Baker Mayfield against Kansas City. The Chiefs' defense has been a lot better lately, and so I don't have him as a start. And I know Mayfield's not really been getting the job done, but you watch him play, Tags. And I know we've talked about this so many times and it hasn't happened yet, but he's going to break out, right? Maybe he just needs a new coach.
He is. He's one of those players where it's like people are going to look back and think that his rookie season that was filled with some ups and downs to it, and the stats don't lie. Obviously, Jarvis Landry is his number 1 receiver, and that's never a good thing. David Njoku not being involved last week, there's so many questions about this team that you have to wonder what the firing of Hugh Jackson and Todd Haley brings. We don't know if Freddie Kitchens, which is the new offensive coordinator, he was the running back coach. So we don't know what he brings to the table. He's never been a coordinator at any level.
Duke Johnson, hopefully. That's what we need.
I mean, I would think that he should be a lot more involved, but there's so many question marks about this team. I mean, the positive with Mayfield this week, if you want to play him and stream him, I don't think he's a bad option. I say that because the Chiefs still have allowed 5 different quarterbacks to score more than 20 fantasy points against them. It's because they're allowing so many attempts.
And Mayfield throws 40 passes a game too, so that works well together.
Yeah, so I mean, you combine those two, and you're going to have a high floor with Mayfield. I don't know if the ceiling is as high as you'd want it to be. I currently have him at 14.
14, yeah, that's exactly where I've got him as well. What about Matt Ryan and Russell Wilson against the Chargers? Where do you have them?
I have Matt Ryan at 8, Russell Wilson at 9, so yeah, they're starting.
Okay, yeah, I've got them both in my top 12 as well. Matthew Stafford against the Vikings is a really puzzling one to me. I've got him at 15 right now. You could start him, but I would rather play a couple other guys.
Yeah, I'm not really interested in playing Matthew Stafford. Obviously, losing Golden Tate, that's like his safety blanket over the middle of the field, a guy who's been getting it done after the catch. The two teams played in Minnesota last year. Obviously, this is a divisional game. Stafford finished with 19 for 31 passing, 209 yards, and no touchdowns. So, in actually going back, I've looked at like his career. The last 9 meetings that he's played against Minnesota, he has not thrown for more than 286 yards or 2 touchdowns. So his ceiling is extremely limited in Minnesota. That defense is getting healthier. They got Everson Griffin back last week. They held Drew Brees to his lowest passing total since 2006. So, yeah, Matthew Stafford is at 16 for me, and he's someone that I would like. If you have him and Ben Roethlisberger, I wouldn't be excited about either of them this week.
Yeah, I was going to ask about Ben Roethlisberger. Let me give you 3 more names, okay? And you tell me which one you would start if you had to decide between the 3. Phillip Rivers at Seattle, Derek Carr at San Francisco, Joe Flacco faced Pittsburgh.
It'd be Rivers, for sure.
It would be Rivers, okay.
It would, just because, so I don't even know if Melvin Gordon plays this game. They're saying that there's a chance he doesn't, especially knowing that how running backs have struggled to come back from hamstring injuries. They've talked about it and said that it's too early to tell that hamstring injuries could be tricky. So that worries me, but that kind of tells me that they're going to have to rely on the passing game a little bit more. I don't think he's a great play. I have Rivers at 15, right in front of Stafford and Roethlisberger, but I'm not trusting Derek Carr to do it 2 weeks in a row.
I got Flacco of the 3. I know that you're not a very big fan of Flacco. Obviously, I'm not of the player, but fantasy-wise, when he's throwing 45 passes a game, he's had 2+ matchups this year. He went for 363 yards and 2 scores, and then against the Saints, he went for 279 and 2 scores, 20+ fantasy points in both of them. Here's another good matchup. Like I said, we saw him do it against Pittsburgh already. I think it happens again this week at home.
Here's my issue with this, okay? So I think people need to realize, I am banging the under on this game because, over the last 4 years, the game's total while playing in Baltimore between these two teams has never exceeded 37 points.
Oh, great stat. Are you serious?
Yeah, the average is 34.8 points per game. Okay, meanwhile, the 4 games in Pittsburgh have never netted less than 40 points. The average of 60.3 total points per game in Pittsburgh. So these two teams legitimately play up to the level of the opposing offense. So Roethlisberger's not going to be playing well. Flacco doesn't throw very much. He struggled over the last 4 games too. I mean, he's thrown just 250 yards per game, 1 touchdown, 1 pick per game. The Steelers defense has played a little bit better as of late once they started putting Joe Hayden in some shadow coverage. But yeah, I'm not excited about this game. Honestly, both Roethlisberger and Flacco are kind of I don't want to touch them considering like I said, over the last 4 years, the total in Baltimore has averaged just 34.8 points per game.
All right, we'll move over and talk about running backs here in just a second. But first, I want to tell you about the sponsor of today's show, HelloFresh. So I'm sitting there last night, and I'm talking to my wife man, we forgot to go to the grocery store. What are we going to do for dinner? Probably just slap some eggs and pancakes together or whatever. And I look at my front door and the HelloFresh package is there, which is beautiful. This is exactly why HelloFresh exists, because going to the grocery store is just a big bummer. You have to drive all the way there. You have to go into everyone hacking their lungs out and everything, right? And so you've got food that's fresh at your front door, and I absolutely loved it. It was delicious. So the way HelloFresh worked, it's a meal kit delivery service that shops, plans, and delivers step-by-step recipes and pre-measured ingredients so you can just cook, eat, and enjoy. They've got 3 plans to choose from: classic, veggie, and family. And you can just enjoy not having to plan dinner, spending money on takeout for an easy night, or worry about gathering ingredients week in and week out. You won't spend all night in the kitchen because recipes only take about 30 minutes. And like I said, it is absolutely delicious. Spend less time meal planning and grocery shopping each week and get that time back to do more of what you love. So here's the deal we have for you guys. You can get $60 off. That's $20 off your first 3 boxes by visiting HelloFresh.com/pros60 and entering promo code PROS60. That's PROS 60. Again, that's HelloFresh.com/pros60 and enter the promo code PROS60 for a total of $60 off. All right, Tags, let's move on over and talk about running back. And if you thought it was ugly at quarterback, man, we are going to have to make some hard decisions here this week. For instance, Peyton Barber against Carolina. I don't want to start most running backs against Carolina, especially not for the Bucs, but I think we might have to.
Yeah, it's kind of ugly to try and do that. I mean, the Panthers haven't been an elite run defense in terms of what people have expected, from a Ron Rivera-led defense. They're allowing 4.6 yards per carry on the season, but they've only allowed 3 touchdowns, and teams just aren't running the ball against them. There's been 122 rushing attempts against them all year, which is bottom 5. So teams aren't able to run. It's just they don't have the time to do so, and a lot of teams are behind the Panthers. They tend to throw the ball a lot more. Knowing that Ronald Jones is out, it does increase his usability, I guess, because he's going to see 10 to 15 touches. He's going to get all goal line work. It's not a great matchup. Again, he's not going to be used in the passing game, so he's at the RB30 range for me. But again, you mentioned it, dude.
You might have to play that. I agree. I don't think it's a good situation, but he's going to get the touches, and so it's a better situation than a lot of our options.
Here's the question for you: would you rather start him or someone like LeSean McCoy this week?
I don't want to play LeSean McCoy against the Bears. I mean, he's been fine, but are they really going to run the ball 15 times playing down 3 touchdowns?
No, I don't know if they're down 3 touchdowns, but I mean, the Bears, this is a stat that I'm blown away every time I do it, and I double checked it just to make sure. The Bears on the year, okay, they've played 7 football games. There have been 4 running backs who have scored more than 5.2 PPR points against them.
That's it?
4 running backs who have scored more than 5 PPR points.
There's a lot of games where there's 4 running backs on one team that score that.
Yeah, that's legitimately all you have to do is catch 2 balls for 30 yards and have a carry for 10. That legitimately would get it done. But yeah, it's not good. LeSean McCoy looked terrible. He didn't even look like the best running back on his team last week. Chris Ivory was running the ball better. It was promising to see him used in the passing game, but it was his first game all year with more than 29 receiving yards. And it's now a new quarterback. So it's back to Nathan Peterman, who as we know, he kind of slings it around. Like, he doesn't care. So, I mean, I have McCoy down at 29, but I'm struggling to figure out between those guys and like Frank Gore. I'd probably play Gore of all three of them, to be honest with you, but it's not pretty.
Just like last year, McCoy's been absolutely worthless the majority of weeks. 22 rushing yards, 39, 24, 13. He did have 2 decent games in there, just like last season, but I think he's done. I'm not playing him against the Bears. I'd rather play Peyton Barber. I wouldn't quite rather play Frank Gore, but he's at least in the conversation. I've got Frank Gore down with ECR running back 34.
Yeah, it's ugly, man. Like, it's an ugly week at running back. Like, looking at the bye weeks, like the 6 teams that are on bye, it's eliminated so many options, and you're going to be left with people starting guys like, like Derrick Henry, like Devontae Booker.
Is Sony Michel going to play against Green Bay? Like, let's say that we don't know. Obviously, they're playing on Monday night. What if we don't know on Sunday? Do you just bench him just in case?
This is a really tricky one. This is one to pay attention to. So here's my take on it. Sony Michel returned to practice last Saturday. It was in a limited fashion. Obviously, he did not play against the Bills, but the Patriots have a bye week coming in week 11. If they don't play him this week, they're definitely not going to play him next week. So they have to choose, are we going to push him back to get 2 games out of him before the bye, or are we going to shut him down basically until after the bye?
Please shut him down for my fantasy football team. I want him for the playoffs, man.
I need him in some leagues to get into the playoffs. Like, Sony Michel has been dominant, but I've had a lot of injuries. Like, Le'Veon Bell's on multiple teams of mine, and that just...
Should have listened to me, man. Should have not drafted him.
Yeah, obviously. But yeah, Sony Michel, if Sony Michel plays, obviously, he's not going to be someone that people are questioning. But that's something we won't know until later in the week.
What about Matt Breida against Oakland?
Matt Breida, I think, is a must-play.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think you could trust anybody on the 49ers outside of him. He's scored less than 5 PPR points in each of the last 2 games while trying to play through an injury. But if you watched last week, like, he didn't show any ill signs of an injury. So I would say that it's fine. Like, you look at the Cardinals, people are going to say, the Cardinals are the worst run defense in the league, and Breida did nothing in that matchup last week, which is fair. But it's a weekly game, right? And we can't just say because he sucked last week, he's going to not be good this week. The Raiders have played 7 games this year. In 5 of those games, they've allowed opposing running backs to total at least 113 yards on the ground, including 224 yards to the Colts running backs while at home last week. Like, they're playing on a short week. A lot of defenses are worn out. This defense has lost talent. Like, they're just not a very good defense right now. They've been trending downward. And Matt Breida wasn't used a whole lot last week, so I think that he's going to be fresh for this game. I think he'll be fine. And they obviously don't want to use Raheem Mostert, and Alfred Morris is just a guy. So I have Matt Breida.
Obviously, they didn't use him last week. Who knows? Maybe he'll lead the team in carries this week. I don't know what's happening with the San Francisco 49ers. With that said, Breida's on pace for 1,000 yards on the ground. Anytime you get a running back like that, who's been playing through an injury, mind you, going up against Oakland, you start him, especially during a bye week like this. I've got him up at RB22.
Yeah, I have him at RB18, so.
Oh, okay. Yeah, ECR has him at 26. We're both a little bit high on him. I assume you have him over Isaiah Crowell. What's your take on him against Miami this week?
I do, but I actually think Crowell is a decent start this week. I don't think he's a bad play at all. I mean, it really stunk because, like, last week the Jets just ran him into the offensive line, kind of like David Johnson with Mike McCoy. But the Dolphins, the thing is, Isaiah Crowell is going to depend on game script more often than not because he's not like heavily utilized in the passing game. But the Dolphins have been gashed over and over by running backs. They've allowed 9 RB1 performances through 8 games.
Oh, man.
Yeah, at least one running back every single game who has scored at least 17 PPR points against them. That's just nuts. It was Bilal Powell. These 2 teams did play back in week 2 where Bilal Powell was the better running back of the 2, but obviously he's on IR. It is going to be the first game back for Elijah McGuire. So I think Isaiah Crowell is a fantastic play. I have him as my RB21.
Okay. I mean, I've got him as startable as well. I can't see him getting fewer than 15 touches. Like you said, it's a good matchup. He's not the most talented guy. He's going to have some big runs here or there. Maybe he's a bust this week. He is a lot of times. But if I had to bet, I think it's going to be a solid game for him. So let me give you 4 more names again, okay? This is for the more shallow leagues. Let's say you've got 2 of these guys. So we got Jordan Howard at Buffalo, Kerryon Johnson at Minnesota, Kenyon Drake against the Jets, and then Tevin Coleman at Washington.
Kenyon Drake is my favorite play of the bunch.
Okay.
Yeah, he's been like getting a lot of touches. Like, Bobby, this is crazy. This is something I had no idea. I learned it when I was doing the primer and just like researching different variety of things. Drake, like, despite being so disappointing for the first half of the year, he is currently the RB15.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Let's not forget that he totaled less than 10 PPR points in 4 of the first 6 games. People were dropping him. And now they seem to have figured out his role. He's averaged 9.3 carries per game, 6.8 targets. I mean, you should say that it's higher, but 16 opportunities a game is not bad. He's averaging 6.3 yards per carry in that time. The Jets' run defense wore down against the Bears last week. I have no issue with Drake right now.
I mean, I love him as a play. I have him in the top 20, but I don't think I could play him over Jordan Howard. I know Howard's been a little bit disappointing. I think this Bills defense, at least their front seven, is a group that you can pick on a little bit. And Howard did have 22 carries last week.
He did, but the game script should fit him again. That's why I think that he's still in the RB2 conversation. I have him at 20, so I'm not like exactly low on him. I think the Bears passing game is going to struggle in this game. I think that the Buffalo defense can keep them in it. And I think that Tariq Cohen, there's been 2 times in his Bears career where he's played more than 50% of the snaps, and it's been the last 2 weeks of the season. So like Jordan Howard has slowly seen his role diminish. He's kind of settled in as a 50 to 55% of the snaps type player. And again, game script should favor him, and he's probably going to score a touchdown, but I don't know if there's much upside. He just doesn't play. He hasn't looked very good in this offense. Like he runs better with a fullback in front of him. He runs better when they stretch the play out. He's been kind of like that guy that keeps running into up the middle of the field, and they're not clearing space. Kyle Long, the Bears, one of their best guards, he's actually now going to be out for at least a month. So I just don't think that Jordan Howard is like a sexy play.
Yeah, they need a different kind of running back there because it's not Howard. If you're going to run Matt Nagy's offense, it's kind of like Carlos Hyde last year with Shanahan's offense. He was fine because he's a fine player, but it's not a good fit.
Yeah, they have Tariq Cohen who can kind of play that James White role, which is awesome. He's really good at it. Like I have Tariq Cohen as a must play. He's like my RB13 this week. But Jordan Howard he just looks like he's running in slow motion. And this offense just plays a lot quicker than that. So I have him at RB20. Obviously, you're starting him if you have him because options this week are just very limited. But I'm not excited about him. And if he has a big week here, I would suggest you guys sell.
Now, you didn't mention Tevin Coleman. He's got 1 game with over 51 rushing yards. Going up against Washington, who, I get it, they're not the best defense, but they are very good at stopping the run. I would prefer not to play him. I've got him in flex territory, but hopefully you've got better options than him.
Well, I have Tevin Coleman at 23. Washington, as you mentioned, they have only allowed 4 total touchdowns to running backs. And that's obviously not great considering Tevin Coleman hasn't run the ball extremely well. That offensive line lost another player last week, so now they're down 2 starting guards. The way to beat Washington, in my opinion, is through the secondary, and I think that that's why they traded for Clinton Dix, because I felt like they knew that there was a weakness in that secondary.
Just perfect, man. I think this team is actually going to be dangerous for the playoffs.
I don't know if I'd say dangerous. I still don't even know if they win that division, to be honest with you. I mean, it's.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't bank on it. There's 3 good teams there. Then you've got the Giants, who, by the way, I saw this post from Adam Pfeiffer on Twitter. Eagles add Golden Tate. Washington adds Clinton Dix. Dallas adds Amari Cooper. Giants backup quarterback nearly runs over a police officer. That's the difference in the NFC East teams.
Yeah, and then they trade away a couple starters. Yeah, no, Lauletta, I don't know if they're going to go to him now, but I mean, if they didn't cut him like the Broncos did Chad Kelly, then I would assume that they have to go to him sooner or later.
Eli's starting next year too, man. Didn't you know?
No, he's not.
He's got to retire. Like he has to know.
You would think so, but no. Why would you do that when you can collect a paycheck?
Yeah, I guess you're right, man. I don't know. So you don't die behind that offensive line?
Yeah. No, but Tevin Coleman, he plays for a high scoring offense. Obviously going on the road is not ideal, but yeah, I have him in that low end RB2, high end RB3 conversation just because of all the bye week limitations we have.
All right, let me ask you about one more player, then we'll go for deeper leagues. I'll name you 4 players. Chris Thompson faced Atlanta. He's questionable, but this is a perfect matchup against Atlanta. I know, he was sidelined from practice. He didn't play much last week. He got 3 carries, 3 targets as well. I think he's a must-play against Atlanta, though, right? They're horrible face pass-catching running backs.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like if Chris Thompson, if I knew he was healthy, which I don't, if I did know he was healthy, I would say that he's like in the RB2 conversation this week because...
Yeah, I'd put him like 18.
Yeah, the Falcons, they've been demolished by pass-catching backs. So they faced 76 targets. They've allowed 62 of those to be caught for 476 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's the 3rd most fantasy points through the air to running backs behind only the Chiefs and the Patriots. This matchup actually suits him much better than it does Adrian Peterson. But someone said, I thought I read something that Chris Thompson came out of that game with a little nicked up. And if he's a little nicked up, they don't play him very much to begin with. So if they cut his role even more, that just means more Peterson. So obviously Peterson's a must play. You play him right now.
Yeah, he got a rib injury, by the way.
But Chris Thompson, I wish he was healthy because this would be a week to smash in DFS.
All right, here's the 4 deeper names for you. Tell me which one you would pick, and give me your second one that you would at least consider. Jalen Richard at San Francisco, Austin Eckler at Seattle, Derrick Henry at Dallas, Duke Johnson face Kansas City.
I would go Eckler because I believe that Eckler is, I mean, even if Melvin Gordon does play this week, I think Eckler's going to have a bigger role.
It's not yet. It's going to be more of a split than we're used to seeing.
Exactly.
Eckler didn't work out so well in Week 17 against Tennessee, and it wasn't a great matchup, but he did play 95% of the snaps. He could be a monster this week.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'd say it like that, but the thing is he's used in the passing game, so he's kind of game script proof, so you don't have to worry about that. Like, again, Melvin Gordon, even if Melvin Gordon does play, there's a risk of re-injury, there's a risk of them not playing him as much, and Eckler was already getting like 7 to 12 touches per game, so he's going to be involved. He's the one who has a guaranteed role. Like Duke Johnson, we don't know. Jalen Richard, he seemed to play the same exact role that he did when Marshawn Lynch was on the team. So he's still like obviously an option in PPR formats, and I have him at RB33 this week. But Derrick Henry is someone that like I would contemplate playing Devontae Booker over him this week.
Oh man, you think Henry's that bad?
I've given up, man. Like he's outside my top 45 running backs in the rest of the season.
I actually scooped him up in a couple leagues.
Yeah, like a lot of people have dropped him, and I have no issue with it. He has shown nothing.
Don't you think he could be a league winner if Deion Lewis was to go down?
I don't think so. I like the thing is like,
well, look at what he did in the playoffs last year in that same situation.
He looks like Jordan Howard, but on the Titans team. Like he just, and that's the thing is the Titans are not scoring many touchdowns. The Bears are. That's why Jordan Howard's having some semblance of a value. Marcus Mariota's not doing anything. Mitch Trubisky is getting some things done. So it's like he's a worse version of Jordan Howard that doesn't fit the offense. Like honestly, no. Even if something did happen to Deion Lewis, I don't think Derrick Henry would be considered an every week start for me.
Okay, that's good information. All right, let's move on over to wide receiver. Actually, before we do, I wanted to remind you all we've got the signed Davante Adams helmet that we're giving away to one lucky listener, and the contest ends on Sunday, so make sure to get your entries in by going to fantasypros.com/contest. All right, at wide receiver, a lot of people have been asking me if they should cut Corey Davis. He goes up against Dallas this week. ECR has him at wide receiver 30. I've got him quite a bit higher. Where do you have him, though?
I actually don't mind Corey Davis against Dallas. So Dallas has been really actually pretty good against wide receivers, but I think he's the type of wide receiver that fits this matchup pretty well. The reason I say that is because they're a defense that's not afraid to allow the catch to you, but they're not allowing a whole bunch after the catch. We know that Corey Davis is going to get targeted. We know he's going to get targeted all over the field, so he's going to see all three of the cornerbacks that they have available for Dallas. But again, they're a team that keeps the play in front of him. They're not allowing the big play, and Corey Davis hasn't been one to stretch the field this year. So I happen to think that he's going to rack up the catches in this game. I have him as my number 25 receiver this week. I happen to think that the bye week may have done a little bit of good for the offensive line, maybe just regroup on offense, figure out their priorities, and Corey Davis is the way they're going to have to move the ball.
They've played 7 games so far, and Corey Davis has been shadowed by a very good corner, like top 10 corner in 6 of them. In the one he wasn't, he went for 9 receptions, 161 yards, and a score. Dallas does not have anybody like that. I think he eats this week. I'm playing him DFS. We'll talk about that on tomorrow's show.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the thing is like, so Dallas, here's the odd part is like, this is something like I find out like when going through all these numbers, Dallas has allowed just 4 wide receivers all year to finish with more than 13.5 PPR points against them. So, like, they've done really good. Like, they've been a really good defense that's been kind of underrated. But again, they've kept everything in front of them, so they're not allowing those massive performances. So I don't think Corey Davis is someone that's going to blow up for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns in this game. But I do think he's going to be a relatively safe option where you could probably rely on its 5 or 6 catches for 70 to 80 yards.
2 other guys that I like. One of them, Cortland Sutton, comes into a great situation. I think he's a start every single week, even against Houston. And then DJ Moore, who I think he played himself into the starter role. He's going to be risky going forward, but not this week against Tampa. This week he's a must start. Do you agree? I
have him as my wide receiver 35. So, I mean, I think that he's a start for sure. I mean, well, he's a start. Like, he's in the starting category with the bye weeks and all that, but I don't know if he's a must start just yet. I say that just because it's like the Panthers, like, they've been throwing the ball a lot more than I think people expected them to, and I think that's because their defense has been somewhat letting them down. They can control this game on the ground, like against Tampa. They can, like, with all the missing pieces, losing Quan Alexander to a torn ACL, missing Gerald McCoy the last few weeks, they've been burned up the middle of the field. So I think Christian McCaffrey and Cam Newton can kind of do whatever they want this week. Devin Funchess has a fantastic matchup, and I don't know if Cam Newton's going to support 2 top 36 wide receivers in 1 week, and I like Funchess a lot. So I have more in the top 36, but he's at the bottom of it because I think this is Funchess week. But as for Sutton, I'm with you. The Texans have had so many injuries on defense that they're starting 2 safeties at cornerback. Like, they're playing Tyrann Mathieu and Kareem Jackson as cornerbacks right now, and it's obviously not great. I mean, you can't run the ball in Houston, so I think that Denver should have to move the ball through the air, and obviously Cortland Sutton's going to see at least, I would say, 7-8 targets in this game, so I have him as my wide receiver 24.
Yeah, I've got him at 25. I've got DJ Moore at 26, and for what it's worth, the expert consensus has them at 27 and 28. Now, a couple other guys up in that range. DeSean Jackson is all the way up at 22. Tex, I'm not seeing that. I've got him outside my top 30.
I don't get that at all. Honestly, I really don't.
You don't get him being that high, or you don't get me having him that low?
No, I don't get him being inside. Yeah, when I went to do my rankings this week, I saw that he was, I think, the wide receiver 23.
Yeah, I mean, he's up to 22, Tags.
That's nuts. I mean, he's played 89 snaps the last 2 weeks. That's 4th on the team, behind Adam Humphries and Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. He's seen 12 targets, so he's still being involved. But the matchup he has this week is against Dante Jackson, their rookie cornerback that runs a 4.3 40. He's a player that can keep up with Jackson. Like, Jackson's not going to burn Dante Jackson in coverage. That's why the Panthers have allowed just 3 plays of 40 yards this year through the air. So I don't like this matchup at all for DeSean Jackson. I would actually rather play Chris Godwin.
Let me tell you this. Sean Corner has him at wide receiver 21 this week. Does that change your mind?
DeSean Jackson?
Yeah.
That's crazy. I got to talk to Sean.
Jake Seeley has him all the way down at 29, though, so...
Yeah, I have him at 31 right now, so I'm obviously not high on him because, like, the thing is, Carolina hasn't been a team to allow multiple, like, top 24 receivers. Like, on the year...
And if they do, it's probably Godwin, not Jackson.
They have allowed... Wow, that's crazy. So all season long, Bobby, they have allowed 3 wide receivers to finish as top 24 options. Odell Beckham, Tyler Boyd, and Alshon Jeffrey.
I don't know, man. I don't understand this, but I'm looking at the expert list, and a lot of the top-ranked experts, Pat Fitzmaurice, wide receiver 19. You've got Justin Boone, wide receiver 22. Andy Behrens, wide receiver 17 for DeSean Jackson.
Maybe it's because it's Fitzpatrick, the way he was playing with him.
Maybe we'll just make up some ground on it this week, because I'm not changing my mind on this one.
It doesn't make that much sense to me. Like I said, when you like literally the stat I just said, so the Panthers, if you think Mike Evans is going to flop, I guess, sure. But they've allowed 3 wide receivers, just 3 wide receivers to finish as top 24 options. 3 all season. Like, they've played 7 games, guys. I don't get it.
Jordy Nelson is sitting there at wide receiver 33. I know it's a decent matchup against the 49ers, but come on, Jordy Nelson as a must start?
No, he's another one that made no sense. I have him down at 48.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've got him at 45, and I thought I was probably the lowest on him. His past 2 weeks, 6 yards, 14 yards. He's done, folks.
Yeah, and well, when they traded Amari Cooper, it was his death sentence. And I talked about that, like, because when they traded Cooper, what happens is Jordy Nelson is going to be forced to play on the perimeter, like, for nearly all of his snaps because Seth Roberts does not do that. He can't do that. So they have Brandon LaFell, old man Brandon LaFell, who's 32 years old. They have old man Jordy Nelson on the other side. And then they have bad Seth Roberts in the slot. This team is like going nowhere in a hurry. I want no part of it. Like, legitimately, I'm okay. If Jordy Nelson scores a touchdown, that's fine. But where Nelson lines up on the field, he's going to see a lot of Richard Sherman, who happens to be the best cornerback that San Francisco has. I'm done with that team.
All right, a couple other guys in this range. Calvin Ridley, he's been disappointing lately. I still think he's a start almost every week, though. Do you agree?
Yeah, I have Ridley at number 27. A lot of people look at this matchup and they wonder, is Josh Norman going to see Julio Jones? And actually, Josh Norman is going to match up with Calvin Ridley the majority of the time.
And I don't especially care because
I'm not worried about it. Like, Calvin Ridley's, he's a route runner. He just had his bye week. His ankle obviously is going to be much better coming off of that. I'm not worried about it at all because you're not going to be able to run the ball in Washington, so they're going to have to move the ball via the air. And Calvin Ridley, the thing is Josh Norman, while he was a shutdown corner at one point in his career, he's not anymore. He's actually running. There's a whole lot of zone coverage that he's playing. Who was it that we had on the show? Was talking about how basically he just drags wide receivers down. His overall numbers don't look terrible.
Oh, that was Justin McMahon. Yeah, he's a Washington fan, so he watches it all the time.
He said that basically Norman would rather like literally just tackle someone and take the pass interference call than let the stats suffer. So that's something to worry about with Ridley. But the thing is Ridley could put on a route running clinic with him. So I'm not worried about Ridley. I don't think he's like a must play or anything like that, but I don't think he's like a terrible one.
I don't think the touchdowns were a fluke. I think that he really is a good red zone guy because he's got good body control. He runs those routes. He's big. He goes and gets the ball at the high point. I mean, I don't think he's like this number 1 alpha dog receiver that I think Cortland Sutton can be. But Calvin Ridley's really good. I think if you have him, you start him.
Yeah, I mean, having Calvin Ridley, like that's the benefit of Ridley is that with the way that Julio Jones like affects a matchup where he pulls a safety a lot. Calvin Ridley's going to see man coverage, and if he sees man coverage, he can run routes as good as anybody in the NFL. So yeah, I mean, especially knowing that Washington now has to, I wonder what they're going to do if they're going to play Clinton Dix as like right away. I would imagine they do. But here's the thing: when you mesh safeties together, even if Clinton Dix and DJ Swearinger are a great combination, and they're both really good football players. When you do this with safeties, a lot of times what you'll see to start a relationship is they're going to have miscommunications where it's like, oh, I thought you had this part of the field.
I don't know, man. You saw the video where Clinton Dix picked it off and then immediately went over to the Washington sideline and gave Swearinger a big high five. Right?
I did see that. Swearinger gave him a high five back, and I was like, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah, I have no idea, man. Maybe they're like best friends. Who knows?
Yeah, it was really odd. But I think there could be some miscommunication in that secondary this week if they choose to play him in a full-time role. So, yeah, again, Ridley's on the borderline, but if you're questioning him or someone else, I'd probably go Ridley.
All right, let's go 3 players here. They're all right in a row in ECR. Traquan Smith faced the Rams. Taylor Gabriel at Buffalo. Devontae Parker faced the Jets.
I'm going to go with Traquan.
I got Parker.
Yeah, I mean, Parker's not bad, but I think Tremaine Johnson is supposed to come back this week, and that's got me a little concerned because he's their best cornerback. That's been out the last few weeks. Parker doesn't play the slot very much, so he doesn't get the best matchup they have. Danny Amendola should be able to eat up some receptions in there if you're looking for a bye-week filler in PPR. But Traquan Smith, I love it. Like, as I mentioned when I was talking about Breeze earlier, the Rams, like, their defense has allowed big plays over and over. Like, they've allowed 10 plays of 40-plus yards. Traquan Smith has been of the wide receivers who play, between him, Michael Thomas, Austin Carr, and Cameron Meredith, he has the deepest average depth of target. So he's the one that's used to, I'm going to put in air quotes, stretch the field. But yeah, he's going to see a lot. So they're probably going to put Marcus Peters on Michael Thomas, which Thomas is going to beat him all day long. But that means Troy Hill is going to match up with Traquan Smith. Troy Hill has allowed 64% catch rate in his coverage and a touchdown every 13.5 targets over his career. So it's not like a small sample. Like, he's got a 4-year career where he allows a touchdown every 13.5 targets. Knowing that Drew Brees are throwing those targets, I like Traquan Smith. I have him as my number 30 wide receiver.
Yeah, like I said, ECR's got them 35, 36, 37. Smith has been on the field as the number 2 receiver for the Saints, but past 3 weeks, I mean, this season he has 10 receptions.
No, I know, and that's the thing is, like, so Ted Ginn, obviously, before he went to IR, Ted Ginn was the one playing. Drew Brees is only throwing to 2 wide receivers. Like, Austin Carr and Cameron Meredith have combined for 12 targets on the entire season. They're splitting snaps now, so you don't have to worry about those guys. Ben Watson is just a guy. Like, if there's a matchup that are tough for the wide receivers, he can go to him. But I think Traquan Smith, he can come alive in this matchup.
Okay, let's go 3 more. We'll go a little bit deeper here this time. Randall Cobb at New England. He's puzzling to me. Kiki QT faced the Broncos. That's if he plays, obviously. And then Geronimo Allison at the Patriots. Tags, why is Allison all the way down at 41? I would pick him out of this group in a heartbeat.
So I actually have Randall Cobb, Geronimo Allison, and Marquez Valdez-Scantling right all next to each other right now. I'm really torn on this wide receiver group because I don't know how to. Sometimes we can't be afraid to say, I don't know what they're doing here, because Randall Cobb, he was running 50 to 60 routes per game earlier in the year, weeks 1 through 3. He came back last week. He did run basically all of his snaps out of the slot, but he only ran 17 routes. Meanwhile, you go over to Geronimo Allison. I think he ran 23, and then Valdez-Scantling ran 22. Valdez-Scantling had been playing in the slot for Randall Cobb, but he only played 22% of his snaps in the slot. So I really do believe that Green Bay is starting to move towards a 4-man rotation at wide receiver. Against New England, you might see all 4 of them on the field more often than you don't. But I think there's like an adjustment period here where we don't really know what's going on. That Valdez-Scantling has clearly played himself into a bigger role. We don't know if it was because Cobb and Allison were coming off multi-week injuries. We don't know. There's so many things that I'm not going to pretend that I know about this situation, but this is supposed to be a high-scoring game, so I think all of them are in that low-end wide receiver 3, high-end wide receiver 4 conversation, but Randall Cobb would actually technically have the best matchup of the 3.
What do we do with Amari Cooper coming back against Tennessee?
Play him.
You would play him right away.
Playing him. I'm not worried about, that's the thing is, like, he's had 2 weeks to learn the playbook, to get on the same page with Dak Prescott. I imagine that those two were best friends this week.
I bet he gets more than 1 target like he saw in the last 2 games.
Oh, that's definitely going to happen. And, like, that's the thing. We've talked about that. Like, that's the thing is, like, all Amari Cooper supporters, all we've talked about is that we want him to get targets. I should have posted, like, I have numbers about him when he gets targeted and stuff like that. And I don't need to do that because, like, I know what's on film. But Tennessee has allowed 5 different wide receivers to top 100 yards against them this year. year. Their secondary, like Malcolm Butler, has turned out to be a bust. Adoree Jackson is good, but he's like an athletic tight end. He's not going to hang with Amari running routes. So there is some risk, but I still have Amari ranked as like a high-end wide receiver 3 this week.
There's some risk with anyone outside the top 25, so I'm fine with that. And I really hope that you're right because I have to play Amari Cooper in my most important league this week. Let's go one more list of 3 before we move on over to tight end. Let's go Chris Hogan, face the Packers. Mohamed Sanu, face Washington. David Moore faced the Los Angeles Chargers.
Oh, man, this one's ugly. I really don't like this one.
This is for those desperate teams out there. Hopefully you're not one of them.
Yeah, so Fabian Moreau has played well in the slot for Washington, so Sanu's got somewhat of a tougher matchup. David Moore, it's really tough to know how LA is going to approach this, but I think I'll go David Moore, actually. They cut Brandon Marshall, showing their confidence in him.
Sure, so maybe he gets 4 targets this week, which would be a season high.
Well, I mean, we're going to see Russell Wilson start to throw the ball a little bit more. He can't continue to throw the ball that little. But the thing is by cutting Brandon Marshall, they said, David Moore, we believe in you. He's played really well. Chris Hogan has benefited from Julian Edelman coming because he's averaged 56 yards per game since Edelman returned compared to like 23 without Edelman. So it's helped. If Sony Michel doesn't play, they're going to have to throw the ball a little more. I don't know, man. I might play Chris Hogan, but literally they are like legitimately all within 5 spots of each other in my rankings right now.
Yeah, it's Hogan for me, and it's not even close. He's got more receptions in the last 4 weeks than David Moore has targets all season. I know Hogan's been a disappointment. I know Moore's been scoring some touchdowns, but we're talking about a starter in Tom Brady's offense in a great matchup. It's going to be a shootout against Green Bay. I'm definitely starting Chris Hogan. I'm definitely not starting David Moore.
Yeah, he's at wide receiver 45 on my list, so it's not like I'm like, oh, you have to play him, but I don't think he's a terrible option.
What about Demaryius Thomas? I know I said we were moving over to tight end, but I've got a lot of questions about Demaryius Thomas. He's going against his team, Denver, this week, but what's he going to play, 20, 30 snaps?
It's tough to say because like they might need him to play more than that because like that's probably part of the reason they made the move is because Kiki QT is probably not going to play. And I say that because he's dealing with a hamstring injury. They have a bye week following this game. So like why push him back when you have a bye week? Like give him 2 weeks more rest and have him back for the stretch.
I agree, but have we ever seen a wide receiver get traded and do anything within the first 2 or 3 weeks?
I don't know. That's a good question. I wish if somebody has researched that, I'd like to know because I think that was
I guarantee Justin McMahon has.
Yeah, like I would say to definitely look that up because like I don't think so. Like again, we talked about that on the trade show where it's like he has to travel to Houston, then back to Denver, and then play a game all within a span of like 4 days. So I have Demaryius at 41. I don't think he's a great play this week for sure. Like I would rather play someone like Geronimo Allison or Randall Cobb because at least I know that they have some upside.
Every single week I think tight end's going to be so difficult, and then I look at the top 12 and it's like, well, how could you have anyone else besides the top 12? So obviously you've got Kelsey, Gronk, Kittle, Jared Cook with Amari Cooper gone. David Njoku, don't give up on him, especially against Kansas City. He had one bad week. O.J. Howard. But then let's get to the bottom 6, and tell me if you disagree with any of these names in your top 12. Greg Olsen, Jimmy Graham at the Patriots. Olsen, by the way, goes up against the Bucs.
Mm-hmm.
Trey Burton against Buffalo. Jordan Reed faced Atlanta. Kyle Rudolph faced Detroit, who's been horrible against tight ends this year. And then Austin Hooper at Washington. After that, there is nobody I would even consider playing. Like, if you have to play someone else, you might as well leave the spot empty.
I don't want to play Austin Hooper. I have him down at 15.
Okay, who do you have ahead of him then?
I would rather play Vance McDonald.
Face Baltimore?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Benjamin Watson. I'd rather play him. And actually Hayden Hurst I would rather play over him.
Yeah, Watson has a good matchup against the Rams. He did get 6 receptions last week. He did get a score. That's not a bad one. A lot of people are saying Chris Herndon against Miami. Guys, I'm not buying it. I know he has touchdowns in 3 straight weeks. He also has, 11 targets in that time, 7 receptions.
Mm-hmm.
This is not somebody you want to rely on.
The crazy part is that Miami, so people look at that and they're like, oh my God, they have a lot of fantasy points to tight ends. And actually, they've allowed 5 tight end touchdowns in their last 3 games. So it's like the two are meshing together to where it's like it screams, it's like, oh, play Chris Herndon. But I don't want to do it. I really don't want to do it because like if you look at those matchups, those tight ends finished with 29 yards, 48 yards, and 23 yards. So if he doesn't score a touchdown, basically he's screwing you. And even if he does score a touchdown, what is he going to have, 20 yards and a touchdown? It's not like he's blowing the roof off. I would rather play Hayden Hurst because, again, he's starting to get more and more involved in the offense. He's basically Last week, he finally caught up to Mark Andrews in routes run. He caught a touchdown at the end of the game. And Pittsburgh has really, really struggled against tight ends without Morgan Burnett on the field.
Why Hayden Hurst? Because, I understand Baltimore had big plans to use him, but he missed out on a lot of the getting acclimated with the offense because of his injury. He's got, 5, 7, 8 targets on the season. Granted, he's only been healthy or active for 4 weeks. I know they're ramping him up a little bit. It's a decent matchup against Pittsburgh. But is there something else that I'm missing here?
No, it's just basically looking for the tight end that you want to play in Baltimore, and I think that he's become that guy. So Harbaugh last week talked about getting him more involved. They said we need to get Hayden Hurst more involved. I know that he's a rookie, but he was the guy that we drafted in the first round because we knew what he was capable of, and we need to get him more involved in the game plan. So knowing that, and then seeing him catch a touchdown last week, obviously they started to do that, and they've been ramping up his snaps as time has gone on. I think they've been just slowly ramping him up, saying, okay, this guy's going to get it. We're going to slowly give him a bigger workload every single week. And going against Pittsburgh this week, again, they have allowed 74% of passes to tight ends be completed. So any volume is really good volume, and Joe Flacco's been targeting the tight ends a whole lot. So the Steelers as a whole, they've allowed the 5th most fantasy points per game to tight ends. I just think that his upside is higher than that of Austin Hooper or Chris Herndon or someone like that.
Long-term upside as well, because Week 11 against Cincinnati, bad against tight ends. Week 12, Oakland, bad against tight ends. Week 13, the Falcons, Chiefs, Bucks. Those are all 5 straight good matchups. You could get a tight end 1 in that case.
And that's the thing is so if you want to even look deeper, if you're looking for a deep play at tight end, I think you might want to go look at Cameron Brate. And I say that because they've now allowed a touchdown. I think it's in 5 of 7 games this year, including 3 of them to the backup tight end. So Dallas Goedert scored a touchdown. Vernon Davis scored a touchdown. CJ Uzama scored a touchdown against them when Tyler Eifert was healthy. So
are you projecting that Fitzpatrick's going to be benched for Winston? Because Fitzpatrick doesn't pass to Brate.
Well, Brate doesn't have very many snaps. That's the thing but Carolina does have a weakness against tight ends. And that's why I'm saying if you're desperate and looking for someone to stream, I think Brate should be on the radar.
I like Jordan Thomas if you're desperate. And we talked about him on the waiver wire show. I don't like him at all. But this week, I definitely like him because I don't think Demaryius Thomas is going to do much. I think Kiki QT is going to be out. And they go against Denver, who's not very good against tight ends. I could see Thomas getting in the end zone again.
Yeah, I have Thomas at number 19, so I think that he's one of those guys where it's if there's 18 tight ends owned in your league, I promise you that Jordan Thomas is probably not. So he'd be someone I'd look at. Jeff Hireman, he's someone that he should see some targets in this game. Knowing that Demaryius Thomas is gone, those targets have to go somewhere. I think that obviously Cortland Sutton gets some of them, but not all of them. Royce Freeman seems like he's going to be out. So again, we're just looking for targets at tight end, and I think Jordan Thomas, keep in mind that you have to make sure that Ryan Griffin is out because otherwise those two will just split snaps.
All right, man. DST, obviously you've got Chicago in there, Kansas City at Cleveland because they're going to get sacks. Dallas face Tennessee, I think is a great streaming matchup. Anyone else you really like this week?
Dallas is the one I picked up in a lot of leagues. The Titans offense has scored more than 20 points just once all season. Marcus Mariota has been sacked 21 times over his last 5 games. So the pass rush will get to him. The Titans offense has only committed 5 turnovers in the last 6 games, so it's not like a high ceiling one, but the Cowboys pass rush has been great. They've delivered 3+ sacks in 4 of 7 games this year. And then if you're looking for someone else that might not be heavily owned, the Bills. The Bills are at home against the Bears. Mitch Trubisky has been inaccurate throughout the year. The numbers, again, they look better than his play, but look what they held Tom Brady and the Patriots offense to. They totaled plenty of sacks over their last 5 games. So I think the Bills defense is going to be someone that I'm going to like a lot in DFS this week.
Yeah, I like the Bills in DFS, especially because they're so cheap. A couple other decent plays that I'm fond of. Oakland to get San Francisco is not a bad one. San Francisco against Oakland. Tennessee at Dallas. And then the Jets at Miami because Brock Osweiler's starting again.
Yeah,
Miami against the Jets too. I almost forgot about them.
Yeah, the Jets and the Dolphins would be my last options, to play those guys. I don't want to play the Raiders defense because they're just not good. I don't want to play the 49ers defense because, again, they're not good and they also have some injuries. It seems like Reuben Foster is not going to play. Jaquiski Tart, he is one of their starting safeties. He's probably not going to start, so I don't want to play those guys' defenses.
All right, guys. Well, that's all for today's show. We really appreciate you tuning in, and thanks to the sponsor of today's show, HelloFresh, where you can get $60 off. That's $20 off your first 3 boxes by visiting HelloFresh.com/pros60 and entering promo code PROS60. That's PROS60. Again, that's HelloFresh.com/Pro60 and enter the promo code Pro60 for a total of $60 off. For Mike Tagliere, I'm Bobby Sylvester. Thanks for listening and enjoy your football.
I just wanted you to watch me dissolve.